Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a really compelling medical mystery. Picture this. You'll wake up absolutely exhausted. You're struggling to remember people's names. And you're watching the scale creep up, only to be told by your doctor that your lab results are perfectly normal. Well, millions of older adults are living this exact, frustrating reality every single day.
You really got to ask yourself, is the fatigue, that sudden weight gain, and those super frustrating memory slips truly just getting older? Or is there a hidden medical culprit operating behind the scenes here? Let's dive right into this, because for so many people, the answer lies right at the base of their neck.
Get this, an estimated 20 million Americans are walking around right now with a malfunctioning thyroid. And when we look at the older demographic, the statistics are honestly staggering. Up to 1 in 5 women over the age of 65 has some degree of thyroid dysfunction, yet the vast majority of them are totally undiagnosed or just inadequately treated. So what exactly is going wrong?
Section 1. Meet your invisible sentinel. To solve this mystery, we first need to understand the sheer power of the biological machinery we're dealing with. It's crazy when you think about the disproportion between the physical size of this organ and its immense power. Weighing less than a single ounce, this little butterfly-shaped gland sits quietly at the base of your neck. But don't let its size fool you. It acts as the absolute master control switch for the metabolic rate of virtually every single cell in your body.
Its command is incredibly far-reaching. The hormones produced here are the ultimate regulators. They literally determine how fast your heart beats, they dictate how quickly you burn calories, and they maintain the clarity of your brain, the strength of your muscles, and even how well your gut moves food along. When this gland is off, your entire system just goes haywire.
Section 2. The Great Hypothyroidism Masquerade.
This is where the dysfunction rarely looks the way you'd expect. An underactive thyroid is actually the most common issue in Americans over 60, affecting roughly 10 to 15% of this age group. And the leading culprit for this massive metabolic slowdown, it's Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It's an autoimmune condition where your immune system basically gets confused and produces antibodies that progressively attack and destroy your own thyroid tissue. It disproportionately targets women, who are 7 to 10 times more likely to get it than men. And what's really chilling is that it can silently hide and simmer for decades before the symptoms even become obvious.
So the crucial point here is how this condition is perceived. Because these symptoms show up later in life, a really tragic attribution error occurs. Cognitive impairment from an underactive thyroid is so often misdiagnosed as early Alzheimer's or vascular dementia. Deep fatigue and low mood, those get labeled as primary depression or just written off entirely as aging. Yet, unlike true dementia, thyroid-induced cognitive impairment is often partially or even completely reversible with the right treatment.
And then we have this very frustrating medical gray zone. Subclinical hypothyroidism affects 8 to 10% of Americans over 60. Basically, this means your lab tests show a mild struggle, but not necessarily enough to trigger an automatic treatment plan in most clinics. It's a highly contested area in endocrinology right now. That's exactly why it's vital to have a real, personalized conversation with a knowledgeable doctor about your specific symptoms and cardiovascular risks, rather than just accepting an automatic prescription or, worse, an automatic dismissal.
Section 3. The overactive thyroid danger.
Now, while it's less common, when that metabolic engine runs too fast in older adults, it becomes highly dangerous. And again, it rarely looks the way you'd expect. Textbook hyperthyroidism in young people means a racing heart, hyperactivity, and anxiety. But in adults over 60, it often presents as apathetic hyperthyroidism. You might actually experience profound fatigue, extreme weakness, and depression. It's completely counterintuitive. And this easily tricks doctors into suspecting things like heart disease or cancer instead of just checking the thyroid.
And ignoring this has severe consequences. Up to 15% of older adults with hyperthyroidism end up developing atrial fibrillation, which is an irregular, rapid heart rhythm that dramatically increases your risk of a stroke. The cardiovascular strain of chronically elevated thyroid hormone can even precipitate or significantly worsen existing heart failure. While we're talking about physical changes, we need to touch on nodules. Thyroid nodules, these are basically tiny lumps in the gland, are actually detectable by ultrasound in over half of adults over 60. If your doctor finds one, don't panic. The vast majority of these are totally benign and really just need periodic monitoring. However, because a small proportion can be malignant, any new lump absolutely warrants a careful ultrasound check just to map out its risk profile. Okay, so if thyroid dysfunction, whether it's slowing down, speeding up, or forming nodules, is so incredibly common, why on earth is your doctor missing it? Well, this is the absolute climax of our medical mystery.
It all comes down to the fundamentally flawed tools being used in the investigation.
Section 4. Why standard testing fails.
The modern medical system is essentially using an incomplete map to navigate your health. As our source material points out in this great quote, TSH measures the pituitary signal to the thyroid, but does not directly measure how much thyroid hormone is actually available to tissues. TSH stands for thyroid-stimulating hormone. Think of it as the brain literally shouting at the thyroid to get to work. Standard screening usually only tests this specific signal. So it shows the brain's request, sure, but it tells us nothing about what your body's actually receiving.
Relying purely on TSH, the pituitary signal, leaves the puzzle totally incomplete. To genuinely understand what's happening, you need to measure the active hormones circulating in your bloodstream, specifically free T4 and free T3. Free T4 acts as your reservoir, but it's relatively inactive.
And that brings us to free T3. This is the real star of the show. It is the most biologically active thyroid hormone that actually enters your cells and drives all that metabolic activity. But here's the massive catch for older adults. You might have perfectly normal TSH and normal T4, but your body can really struggle to convert that T4 into the active T3. This impaired conversion happens because of things like chronic stress, illness, or nutrient deficiencies, which leaves you feeling completely exhausted despite quote-unquote normal standard test results.
Section 5. Optimizing your thyroid health.
This is where you get the exact actionable evidence needed to solve your own health mystery and finally get your vitality back. You have got to advocate for yourself. Next time you see your doctor, do not just settle for a basic TSH test. Request this exact comprehensive panel. You want TSH, free T4, free T3, and crucially, your thyroid peroxidase and thyroglobulin antibodies. Those antibodies are the autoimmune markers that tell you if conditions like Hashimoto's are silently attacking your gland way before TSH even drops.
Once you have the actual data, you can start supporting your thyroid nutritionally. The gland needs very specific raw materials to function. Iodine is essential for synthesizing the hormones, but pay special attention to selenium. Taking 55 to 200 micrograms daily is vital because your body uses selenium to convert that inactive T4 into the highly active T3 we just talked about. Zinc and iron are also absolutely foundational supporters that you don't want to ignore.
You also really need to be aware of hidden disruptors. Elevated cortisol from chronic stress directly suppresses thyroid function. And please be extremely careful with medications and supplements. Even something as common as over-the-counter high-dose biotin supplements, which so many people take for hair and nails, can drastically skew your lab results. It can make it look like you have a thyroid issue when you don't, or completely mask one that you actually do have.
As our source perfectly summarizes, the subtlety of hypothyroid symptoms in older adults creates an environment in which millions are living with undiagnosed conditions. The core takeaway from this explainer is that this invisible sentinel holds profound, undeniable power over your entire metabolism. Its distress signals should never, ever be ignored or casually brushed aside.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. The next time you feel inexplicably exhausted, cognitively foggy, or just fundamentally unlike yourself, are you going to accept it as just aging, or will you demand comprehensive testing and investigate your thyroid? The power to reclaim your health is totally in your hands. Advocate for yourself, and don't let the invisible sentinel remain